Where the hell is Ellis? Wasn't he supposed to be here like an hour ago?
Yeah, actually.
Holy crap, dude!
I got into an accident.
How did you start this Comic Book Zero series?
Okay, well, Marco, you want to jump off that?
Originally, I had an idea that I had thrown around. A couple people like gave them buzzwords about it. Most people didn't really understand, and I kind of realized that I'd have to find a fan of like a true fan of comic books to really like go through with the idea of these are the main three guys. You know, it's what our story focuses on. And so after a long run of people going like, I don't get it, I don't understand it, I came to Carl.
He found me. We were just in class and we were talking about it, passing notes along about it, and he just told me like, go home, write whatever you can on it. I come back with like a 15-page pilot of sorts. And it pretty much just started off from there, and then the shorts.
Yeah, so we figured, Carmen brought to my attention the fact that, and we always knew, we worked with a woman named Linda Calgo, who used to be a writer for like Law and Order and stuff, a huge mentor of ours, and she would tell us that, you know, our story, no matter where it goes, is going to rely on our three guys. So we knew that, okay, before we get into any sort of long run, we were going to have to figure out that these three guys are going to have to be it forever, right? So anybody else we add has to fit that mold. So we wrote a short that was Sophie's Choice. That was the first thing that we did, and it was a little what do you say?
I mean,
Topical, not topical. I guess you could say a little dangerous. A little dangerous because the jokes necessarily weren't friendly. A lot of them made fun of the fact that Linda Calgo was a writer for Law and Order. I had no idea until she read the script and thought it was awesome, and she loved the joke about Law and Order in it. And so, one thing that she's told us, it was from the beginning, was write scripts, do enough shorts before you hit your main story, so that you don't get derailed. So that by the time you're hitting your narrative, nothing derails our main three. So that's what we did. The first thing we did was Sophie's Choice, and it was just from there we were like, okay, every time we had another character idea, we had to shoot something to prove the fact that that person had clout in the world that we were trying to create from, what is it, November of 2010.
oh yeah.
NBC needs to make their money somehow. Besides, Dick Wolf needs to get paid, bro.
Yeah, but how many times can you solve a case by semen and keep acting surprised that that's how you solve the case?
It's like you see a comic book movie, it's like you only see the characters. I mean, you'll hear a couple of names like Stan Lee and stuff, but it's like you never really hear how they came about it. So it's all like we wanted to do something that kind of focused on the creators and what they could possibly go through.
If what they creates imitates what they grew up in, you know, like Bob Kane with his Batman was a kid during the Depression, so he was like, you know, that's what Batman rose out of, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where me and Carwin met on an even playing field when it came to telling the story. And one thing that I remember is I grew up drawing and painting and all that stuff. My grandpa had always kind of been a mentor to me in that way, so I had done like an internship, I guess you could call it, where I did like some freelance art for a company out in Southern California that was, you know, kind of starting up, a comic company. Mm-hmm. I did it, and I started realizing like, it's kind of interesting. Like nobody ever hears about like having to do the intern work or realizing like the attitudes involved. You know what I mean? That it's no different than any other industry where, I guess in a lack of a better word, shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? Where things get out of control in any industry, and especially with the industry that's blooming like it is right now, and on the verge of the potential of falling apart at its next big failure. You know, that everything relies on everything having to be the next best idea, and that's kind of nerve-wracking because you can't be an artist. Like there's no Picassos of comic books anymore because everybody wants to hit it out of the park. So.
you write these scripts, and then what's the process to getting these episodes made? How do you go about making these
Oh man,
real
like
short films that exist?
you mean
know?
from like the concept, from like inception of the idea to like the
Yeah.
execution?
Well, basically, it would be to just sit around. It would kind of like knowing that behind Sophie's Choice is just knowing like when it comes to like solving cases on Law and Order, just, you know, like that's how they solve their cases nowadays. Just seeming like there's no deductive reasoning at all. And
Yeah.
I guess it just got on our nerves.
Yeah.
For a while.
And it was
It's almost kind of us not trying to say like venting in a way, but just like pointing it out, even
Yeah.
if it is a satire.
and it was one of the frustrations where a lot of the stuff we write comes from a point of having at this point, because of the medium now, everything has to start online, right? So you can't, there's no more of like the glory story of like I just went up to a studio and pitched it to a network, and there's none of that.
Yeah.
So it became like our kind of frustrations of having to be on the internet right now. We figured, you know what, we're just gonna lash out at everything. Like everything is kind of open for, you know, open for fair game. So
including us.
yeah, including people like us, like the creators, or us taking ourselves too seriously, you know. So when it comes to like the ideas of it, it could be from us trying to figure out how to market, became downloaded. You know, from us trying to figure out our narrative came Sophie's Choice, which was like, okay, if all these characters have a purpose, like even Maggie's character has a purpose. One of the jokes is the blood and semen thing, because it was like I don't know how to like write a case, you know what I mean? Like I don't know how to write a police procedural in the sense of like what was the trajectory on a bullet, and like, you know, what kind of casing was. I don't know any of those terms, so I figured blood and semen was cool. And that's a frustration that Kirby shares in Sophie's Choice, where he's like, how am I supposed to be a writer if all I'm stuck to is like the formula? You know, everybody's telling you like you got to be outside of the box.
And knowing that like
In
trying to
reality,
be outside of the box sometimes doesn't cut it.
It gets you kicked out. So
Right.
that's where downloading came in, because downloading was now all of a sudden it's like, you want us to fit in this box, and that offended people. And it's like, screw it. You know what I mean? Like let's make mention of the internet that we're on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, and that like it doesn't matter if you're in or out of the box. It's just, you know, whatever you kind of fully believe in is open for game. Like there's the line with David talking about the Catholic priests. You know, that's a line that could have gotten us in a lot of hot water, and it didn't. People like it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it becomes like, so that's okay to do, but it's not okay to. People were iffy about the comic book creator's story, but the Catholic priest joke was okay. So every time we did a short, it was like the execution, and when it came to writing it, was like, what can we get away with to make a point?
And just know that we wouldn't want to try to do something that'll go too far and like make people groan about it. Like trying not to like make ourselves seem like we're really full of it,
Yeah.
but just to tell them like an honest side towards it all.
Okay.
Yeah. Be fair in it, and as for the execution, like how it comes about, up until now, and even to like the Dinner for Schmooze pilot, it's just been us. Carwin runs sound. I operate camera. To the best of my abilities, is trying to differentiate myself as like directing and trying to make sure my frame's right. You know, because as a director, you're always going like, I need to be in there with my characters. So like, you want the camera. You know.
But I think you've accomplished that.
Right, and it took an experiment in formatting, which was, we used like the sitcom style presentation for Sophie's Choice. Our first time shooting high def, which was weird, because it was like, that's a little too clean for the characters. Like I'm always thinking in the mode of what fits the characters. So every time was an experiment.
Then we move on to downloading and shooting it as if it was a webcam. To where it was just knowing that like sooner or later we were going to have to like try to like venture out and see what will happen if we just put it out there. Like every other style that you've seen, just like somebody with like a webcam of some sort and just like talking straight into it, and like trying to cut like back and forth within.
And always kind of reminding Carwin and myself that like I wanted to shoot downloading in the sense that we could always use it as what it was meant for the character, and the black and white parts are a hint to like how we were going to present the pilot. That the stuff you don't see is kind of interesting. Like it hints to like character interaction, you know, like so between like Maggie and David, their weird like tension that they have over Kirby, like they're kind of possessive. And it was just an experiment. Everything was an experiment up until we got to even shooting episode 1, and even down to like the Matt Parker interview was an experiment, because it was like we had to shoot something that was gonna feel spontaneous and feel like natural.
Right.
The worst thing you want to see is like The Office, but like badly presented. You know, it doesn't matter how good the camera is. It just, especially with something like that, because then it becomes, what are you doing with your actors, right? So we had to set that tone for that shoot like months in advance, in the sense of like this weird
running a 2-camera setup, and like having the idea behind it was like Gretchen Warner was just gonna come in and just talk about it with our main villain, Matt Parker's played by Brock Wilbur, and like knowing that there was like this tension of like Brock Wilbur's character Matt, who's like kind of a dick.
Egocentric, yeah.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just knowing like
we had to set that up, you know,
by making sure we didn't do a table read, knowing that they were going to be uncomfortable with one another just for a little while.
And I took that risk on, you know, Carwin is an amazing producer, so he's somebody who likes to stay in contact up until like the day of, right? And my thing was like, I just told Carwin, I go, you know, I really want to have it be as awkward as possible, because if it is, then it'll read well, you know, to somebody, especially to us going from page to screen, because all that is written, like none of that is ad-lib.
Yeah.
And it was like always knowing that if you can write good ad-lib, then when it comes to our shoots where we get into our mode, we can kind of play jazz a little bit.
Naturalistic.
Right. And so setting that tone, that awkward tone, almost backfired.
Okay.
But it was, I mean, it was a trial and error. It's like we wanted to try to do something different to see what kind of style we could do with what we have. And it's like, after just like watching it, it's like I believed it paid off.
Yeah.
You know.
And it ended up serving as a perfect intro to the pilot, to not only introduce the world that Kirby looks up to, and how kind of crazy it is, but at the same time, it's easy to pick cinematic frames. To me, it's not easy to shoot something that looks like an interview.
Okay.
Like run and gun interview. Like we only have 5 minutes, we got to get this live, it's on the internet, like let's just shoot it. You know, so we had to bring that approach when it came to the day of the shoot, and that was in January.
Okay.
So we had to maintain those ideas from that November 2010 to the minute we were done with like post on the pilot.